Hey, welcome to Class Act Media. I'm Jack, and I've told you about a lot of things I love on this channel. Doctor Who, Community, various comics and movies, etc. But there's one passion I have that I don't often get a chance to talk about, and that's absurdist talk shows. So, let's talk about them now. We live in an age of great turmoil, an age in which the YouTube trending page is filled not with YouTubers but with late-night talk show hosts. Be they Stephen Colbert, James Corden, Jimmy's, Kimmel, or Fallon, not you, Conan, you're a perfect little angel, never change. In days of old, the late-night talk show host was the king of television. People like Johnny Carson and Jack Paar reigned supreme, entertaining millions and pushing the boundaries of what could be said on television. Seriously, look up Jack Parr's water closet joke. Something that was considered scandalous back then is the tamest shit nowadays. But somewhere along the line, like Rome before it, the great talk show empire fell. These days, at least in the YouTube community, talk show hosts are seen as parasites, clinging to relevance by intruding on a turf where they don't belong. So, is it any surprise that a genre that openly mocks this type of show has slowly risen to prominence as the very thing it was made to mock slowly withers away? The earliest example I can think of is Space Ghost Coast to Coast in 1994. This is the only one I haven't seen, save for a few highlight clips, so I can't really speak on it. But from what I have seen, it seems to have been pretty damn influential to future shows like it. The earliest one that I have seen is Between Two Ferns, which premiered in 2008, coincidentally the same year Space Ghost ended. Hosted by Zach Galifianakis, Between Two Ferns certainly laid the framework for what was to come. It was a very simple show, just Zach, a guest, a plain black backdrop, and of course the titular Two Ferns. The joke came from its simplicity and unprofessional nature. Zach would play the insult comic to these celebrities, and it's always fun to see a famous person be able to laugh at themselves. Of course, these were mostly staged, so it's hard to say what boundaries they laid down, but hey, the show got big enough that they were able to interview a president, not you. Recently, Netflix released a Between Two Ferns movie, and it's fine. The interviews just lack the same punch that they used to have, and the story sections in between those interviews are just so forced and boring. It's a shame, since the movie was directed by Between Two Ferns' creator and someone I personally find to be hilarious, Scott Aukerman. Speaking of Scott Aukerman, he was also the host of another absurdist talk show, and one of my personal favorites, might I add, Comedy Bang Bang. Man, what words do I even use to describe Comedy Bang Bang? On the surface, it seems like your average talk show with host Scott Aukerman and his trusty sidekick / band leader Reggie Watts. Or Kid Cudi or Weird Al, depending on which era of the show you're watching. Every episode has its own bizarre, overarching story, with a personal favorite of mine being a parody of Die Hard featuring The Lonely Island. These gave the show such a unique personality that I've never seen recaptured quite the same way anywhere else. They had some really great wordplay, too.
Oh, this interview seemed to be going just like the thing Jack and Jill went up that old hill to draw from. Well.
As for the interview sections, they had a much more chill tone than Between Two Ferns. The guests were certainly in on the joke, and the gag setups were always scripted, but they always devolved into these ad-lib bits of Scott bouncing the joke off the guest, and they were always hilarious. After that always came a second fake guest played by an actor. Have you ever seen that 555 Come On Now gif? Yeah, that's from this show. And who could forget Haley Joel Osment in the role of a lifetime as recurring character Slow Joey? He even got his own special episode where he got his own sitcom called Taking It Slow. To this day, I can never see Haley Joel Osment in anything without calling him Slow Joey. On top of that, Comedy Bang Bang had one of the most satisfying finales I've ever seen. When it looks like they're going to have to cancel the show, they realize they can just still keep doing what they're doing just without cameras anymore. So it just leaves them in their studio, doing their thing for the rest of time. Not only is this funny, but in a strange way, it's kinda comforting. And that's it. That's all the Absurdist talk shows. Wait, hold on. I'm forgetting one, aren't I?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Eric Andre Show!
Of course, you can't talk about absurdist talk shows without the king himself, Eric Andre. Honestly, what can I say about the Eric Andre Show that hasn't already been said? Well, this show is the opposite of everything I've talked about in this video. Where in Between Two Ferns and Comedy Bang Bang the guests are in on the joke, the guests on Eric Andre are most certainly not. Eric Andre has said that he prefers his guests to have no idea what they're getting into when they agree to be on his show, and if they do know, he cranks up the insanity to 11. The comedy comes from watching the absurdity of Eric and his co-host Hannibal Buress and the reactions the guests have to it all. There's even stuff we don't see going on behind the scenes to increase the level of discomfort. I distinctly remember Eric Andre saying one time that he likes to release terrible smells into the studio just to mess with guests on another level. That is commitment right there. And speaking of commitment, god damn those street segments. Andre is clearly not afraid to make a complete fool of himself in public. Apparently he's been arrested more than once for these stunts too. Eric Andre is one of the most dedicated and devoted people in comedy, and I'm glad he's finally starting to get the recognition he deserves. These shows, Comedy Bang Bang and Eric Andre especially, have really helped to define and shape my sense of humor, and they serve as pretty huge inspirations for me. I know I can't be the only one either. Just look at the show born right here on YouTube, 1 Minute Talk Show. These guys were clearly inspired by these same shows, and seeing their humble beginnings in high school all the way to their still humble current day is really fun. Not to mention, these guys are absolutely hilarious. If you like Comedy Bang Bang and Eric Andre, you'll like 1 Minute Talk Show. They even recently released a song called Prehistoric Girl that is both hilarious and an absolute banger. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the point of this video was beyond gushing about an oddly specific subgenre that I love, but hopefully, now that I've introduced you to these shows I love, you'll go watch them and they'll become shows you love too if you don't already love them already. I said already twice. We're keeping it in. See you next time, guys.
She doesn't know about AIDS. She's got a good feeling about JFK. She wants to meet John Lennon.